just understand is I'm the one who primarily puts the agendas together, and of course I do it with Andy's supervision. But just know that Sunday afternoons are going to have some of the very best content that we have. So if people leave, it's like, oh, big mistake. That talk, was that a good talk? So I'm just telling you, it was great. First of all, it's really well delivered, and it's funny because I knew Mike was in a company. We had 1 million people worldwide. We had, 20,000 so people showing up at events. So there was people I would hear their names because they were climbing up the leaderboards, or I'd meet them once or twice and I'd kind of know them, but it was hard to know a lot. We had a couple thousand leaders, that were all doing something. Mike was one of those up and coming people, but I knew Mike because my daughter, I'd never pushed either of my daughters to do network marketing, but she wanted her boyfriend, who had always met me casually, socially, to get an idea of what I did. So when we did an event at the Toyota Center in Houston, she brought him along, and we sold the whole thing out, and he was like, oh my God, I had no idea. So he got all fired up about doing network marketing, so he ended up being on Mike Guerra's team. And I got to know a little bit about Mike, and it's so awesome. That was probably 6 years ago, something like that, maybe 7 years ago. And to see the growth in him, the first thing I wanted to say is, and Beth mentioned it, she said her and her husband are a product of the system. The more we can get people saying, I'm a product of the system, Mike is definitely a product of the system. And as you're getting your group to understand, it's hard to be a product of the system if you don't come back to event after event after event after event. And Mike is a great example. Mike was, I use the example all the time, treading water. You don't get very far treading water. The key thing about treading water is you don't drown. So Mike treaded water financially for quite some time. He just told you he wasn't doing that great. But when he got a fresh start here at the Alliance, he's killing it. But it wasn't just that selling insurance is that much better than what he was doing. Mike is a different Mike than he was 6, 7 years ago. He was just right place, right time, and this is a great opportunity. Obviously, you all know that. Okay, so there's a few things I want to share with you. I want to kind of piggyback a little bit on top of Mike's talk. The build with, build through, build for. I cannot impress upon you how important it is that you understand that and that you teach that. If that's the only thing we taught about building this weekend, I don't know how to impress upon you how critical that information is. Andy told me we're going to have that talk up somewhere on a website in the immediate future, so everyone, if people did leave or they weren't here, they're going to be able to get that information. That's really, really important. He said a couple of other things. When the windshield time, again, that's why you've got to travel. Listen, the obvious, there's different phases of momentum. Okay, I was going to talk about this later in my talk, but I'll talk about it now. Creating momentum is the hard part. Creating momentum is when we pick up the phone and we call prospects who are not in the company yet. What's easier to do? Pick up the phone and call someone who has never heard of what we're doing, or picking up the phone to call someone who's on your team to motivate them? Which one's easier? Come on. It's the second phone call, pick up the phone and motivate the person you already got. And that's why a lot of people go into phase 2. So what I call phase 1 is when when I myself am doing my own recruiting. I'm putting new people into the system. I'm doing windshield time with them. I'm doing everything with my people. That's phase 1. Phase 2 is where you get a bunch of people doing phase 1 and you kick back and you kind of oversee and manage it. And that's a mistake for the most part. Until someone is a rock solid leader, that's a mistake. Again, the analogy I've used here in the past is if you had a child who was born, you have a 1-year-old, on his 1-year-old birthday, you happen to have child number 2, and you go to the 1-year-old and go, wow, we are so worn out from this experience. We're going to take a couple days off. You take care of your little brother. He's only 3 days old right now. You're going to have to feed him. Of course, that's absolutely preposterous. It's that goofy to have someone who's been in the business for 1 month teaching and training people who've been in the business for 1 week. So it's important, and I'm reemphasizing a little of what Mike said, to you go deep in the group. You stay in phase one. And phase one is not just me inviting my prospects. Phase one is me driving depth anywhere at all in that group. And we talked a lot about driving depth. I don't know how to explain how critical it is to do that. And all I'm doing when I'm driving depth, and if you don't understand what that term means, I'm going to give you an illustration here in a couple of minutes. I'll have a person come out and help me. But you're going down and you're looking for the person that Mike just talked to you about. And a lot of times you go really deep. How many have ever heard of people who invested in an oil well and it did not ever find oil? Have you heard that before? Does that happen rarely, or does that happen frequently? Frequently. As a matter of fact, it's pretty rare when you drill for oil and you find the oil. But when you find one gusher, I've never owned an oil well, but I think that would be fun. But when you drill and you find nothing, what Andy said earlier, Andy Riddle, about not everything needs to cost money. Yes, buy leads. I couldn't agree with you more. I'm going to talk about that for a moment or two as well. But there are things that you can do for free or that you can do for cheap. I remember years ago, a totally different day and age, different business. But when newspapers were the thing, like you could put an ad in a Sunday paper, and man, we would get sometimes 300, 400, 500 calls off one ad in the Sunday paper. Do the younger people know what I'm saying when I say a newspaper? Okay, kidding. Please tell me you know what a newspaper is. So anyway, so I was running ads. I was in the city of Philadelphia, and I was running ads in the Philadelphia Inquirer, which is the main paper there. And I would say a Sunday ad back then, this is 35 years ago, is probably $250. But then I ran an ad in a local, I was in northeast Philadelphia, in Bustleton Avenue. It was a little Italian neighborhood. And I went into a pizzeria and I picked up a free paper, and there were some ads in there. So I went and I called the number there for advertising, and I put an ad in, and instead of $250 for a Sunday, it was $7 for a month. Way cheaper. Now, I also knew it was a much smaller circulation. God's got a sense of humor sometimes. I worked in Philly for a year, and the best person I got off an ad came off that $7 ad. I know another situation, I had a person on my team. I'm not a big flyer person, okay? Some people put out flyers. My experience with flyers is you print the flyers, you put them on 1,000 windshields in a parking lot. A couple hours later, when the movie lets out and all the flyers are thrown on the ground, isn't that what you do with flyers? You get the person who owns the parking lot up or the building up, and they say, hey, if you don't come and clean up these flyers, because your number's on all the flyers so they know who it is, we're going to fine you or arrest you. So I've never been big on flyers. However, I had someone on my team, they wanted to put flyers out, and as long as someone's doing activity, I don't to people, because no matter how big your team is right now, obviously, we just saw all the speakers, right? How many would like to have someone pick any of the speakers? Would you like to have a new leg with that person in it starting next month? Would anyone not want that? Would you not want Joseph Dukes? Would you not want any of our people? Everyone did a great job. So the point is, we'd love to have them. And here's the thing you got to understand. There are millions of people right now who need an opportunity. Okay, and so if you're like, and this is what people do, they go, oh, my group's pretty good right now. You know, I got a good team right now. The sports teams do this too. They go, we're pretty good. We made the playoffs. We don't need to worry that much about adding new players. Okay, but this year, whether you recruit a lot or not, there's a bunch of great players coming out of college. So if there is going to be a Hall of Famer coming out of college this year, and you could have him on your team, are you telling me you don't want him? So you only get a chance to get people. You've got to be aggressive. You've got to recruit as many as you can, because if you don't get them, somebody else is going to get them. And it may be someone in the Alliance. It may be someone in another insurance company. It may be someone selling cars. But there's a lot of people. As a matter of fact, right now, financially, it's a weird time. How many realize economically we have never seen anything like this before? Like, gosh only knows what's going on with stock market, real estate. It's all weird, but like, so everything's bad, but I'm looking to buy another home right now because my wife, and by the way, my wife was here last night and met some of you guys, and everyone was so sweet to her, so that was really cool. She had a blast. So my ex-wife, my wife is not excited about living in a house that I lived in with my ex-wife for 30-something years. I'm a male. Males don't have high IQs, but I get it. So we're going to get a different house. However, that house is the house my daughters grew up in, so I'm very yellow. And I know if I was playing cash flow quadrant right now, I would fail on this one. But I'm just holding on to that house because I know someday my kids are going to want that and one of them will live there or whatever. But we're going to get a new house. So my point is, I'm looking for new houses, and no one's selling their damn house. If the economy's so bad, would someone please be in economic trouble and have about a $3 to $4 million house in the part of Dallas that I would like to buy it right now? I'm putting that out there, God. Can we do that, please? I need that house. But so things are bad, but they're good. The rich are getting richer like never before. But there are, I'm telling you, a lot of people in a state of transition right now. How many of you have read that robotics are going to eliminate like 10 or 20 million jobs over the course of the next 7 or 8 years? So it's a ripe time. I'm going to pause for a second. I love reading books like a lot of you guys do. Rick Pitino, coach of Kentucky. You've heard of him, I'm sure. If you haven't, he's a Hall of Fame basketball coach. And he wrote a great business book. I forget the name of it. I'm sure someone here knows it, but it's a really good. He wrote a couple books, but his first one was awesome. And when Kentucky won a national championship team underneath him, the first time he won the championship, he said he had that team so well conditioned, meaning they ran sprints. They were like crazy in shape, and at every practice he would tell them, we're going to be in better shape than any team in the nation. We're in better shape. And he goes, and then numerous times throughout the season, the last 2 minutes of the game, when everything counts and you either win or lose, in the huddle he would deliberately say, guys, we've got an advantage right now because we're in better shape than they are. That's all that work we do in practice. We're in better shape. Now in the book he goes, I don't really know if we're in better shape, but my team believed me, so mentally and emotionally they expected to win because they thought they were in better shape. So what I'm trying to say to you right now is, why don't you play a head game with yourself and make believe that in the history of the last 100 years of insurance, this is the best time to recruit someone into this business. Right now. It's the most ripe possible time. So why don't we, how many of us have ever walked up to someone, wherever it might be in a restaurant, might be at a nightclub, might be at a mall, and you see them and you observe them and they're dressed great, they seem personable, and you say to yourself, I'm going to recruit them. Have you ever done that? And then how many have walked over to them, if they're standing right here, and then kept going? And why do we keep going? Because we assume they're already busy, they're already successful, they're already whatever. In reality, who knows? So the point is, what if we start assuming that everybody would like to hear about what we're doing? And I don't care what the game is. You've got to do something to increase the amount of recruiting you're doing. And no matter how many people you have on your team, you never have enough. And the best example, and I use it over and over and over again, if Andy is the wealthiest person in this room, which I'm pretty doggone sure he is, Andy and Jane, and he's still actively recruiting people, how on earth are you justifying in your mind you don't need to recruit more people? Your team can't be big enough. So stay in phase one. When you find people, remember, you work where you deserve, not where you're needed. Everybody needs your help. But again, if you want to be a babysitter, if you want to join the Peace Corps, God bless you, that's wonderful work. If you want to build this business, and Mike said it, if they're not willing to do the equal amount of work to you, what's the point? My mentor said point blank when I met him, there's a big mountain. We're going to try to climb it. It's going to be hard as hell. There's 100 pounds we're carrying to the top of that mountain. That's your job, to carry 100 pounds to the top of that mountain. I'll carry 50 of your pounds if you carry 50. Fair? How could you turn that down? By the way, the minute you think I should carry 51 pounds, you're on your own. Okay, so this can't be, but I want it for them so bad. How many have ever wanted it for someone so bad, but they didn't want it for themselves? Yeah, it doesn't matter how bad you want it. If you're in a relationship with someone, how many times do you see someone who's in a relationship with someone, and we really want the other people to change to be the person we want? Well, does me wanting my spouse to change usually change them? You know what changes them? If they themselves want to change, then they'll change. So again, a lot of you are just, you're not being, well, I hate the word realistic, I told you that. You're not evaluating the situation properly. If you don't have people that were here, that's a sign. Okay, in the beginning, Mike just said it again, some will, some won't, so what, right? That's our mantra. Some will. We say that because earlier one of our speakers said people don't like rejection, and it's a truth. So when you go to recruit someone, they say no, you can always fall back on a soft bed of some will, some won't, so what? It really doesn't matter. If you can get your people to get that, they'll invite more people to look at a presentation. But that is not the only sort. That's the first sort. How many have people on your team who have not gotten licensed? That's a sort. How many people have gotten licensed but haven't written a policy? That's a sort. How many have people who have written some policies but they haven't invited someone down for a presentation? That's a sort. How many people have gotten some folks on their team but they won't attend these events? That's a sort. So I'm constantly observing the hoops that people are jumping through. So I am taking the precious time that I've got to build this business and working with the ones who are most engaged and most excited. So I can find the people that Mike Youre was talking about, because if I'm working with the wrong person, if I'm working with a non-committed person, it's not more difficult, it's almost impossible. You've got to be working with the right person. Great coaches, God bless them. But without great players, great coaches don't look so brilliant. When you have a great coach and a great player, that's when things work out really well. I told you I want to say something about leads. How many of you believe we've talked a lot about leads this weekend? If you haven't gotten that message, I'm a little concerned about you. Okay, I think you may be the person who needs the flight attendant to explain what the seatbelt is if you didn't get that message, okay? That is crystal clear. Increase the amount of leads, and so many speakers addressed it so many ways. I want to just give you one other way of looking at it. So again, in my past, in networking, there were no leads to buy. That we didn't have, oh my God, I wish we had leads. We didn't have leads. That was like why I was running these expensive ads in the paper and doing all the crazy stuff. Back in the day, that's why I was knocking door to door. We didn't have leads. So for me, I would be buying leads like they're going out of style because I didn't have leads. And we understand your way you view the world right now is based on your past life experiences and your beliefs. So my past life experience is, oh my God, we don't have leads. If I could have leads, it'd be a million times easier. So I would naturally come in by a lot of leads. A lot of people, they don't look at it that way. They're like, oh my gosh, look at the money I'm spending. I understand that. So in network marketing, we had a different problem. Not problem, we had a different scenario. When people join a network marketing company, the way that you would get paid off them is when they buy inventory. So if you recruit 1,000 people and no one buys anything, you make nothing. Okay, if you recruit 1,000 people and everyone buys $100 worth of stuff, you make some money. So people are encouraged to purchase inventory. Now, when I started network marketing, they said, hey, you're gonna have a store. You wouldn't have a store with no inventory, right? People can't take a brochure of skincare and rub it on their face and go, oh my God, my skin is so much nicer. You need to actually have some skincare, right? And I was like, So what you should do, and blah, blah, blah. Long story short, I ended up borrowing $5,000 to get inventory when I started. And that was almost 40 years ago. That was a lot of money back then. The industry has changed a lot, but people are still, when someone gets started, they need to get inventory. Now, I bought the inventory and I sold it. Here's the thing. Someone said earlier, the people who are buying the leads go, well, I better go sell now because I bought the leads. How many think that's a real phenomenon? So for me, I bought the inventory, so I'm like, well, damn, I better go sell it now. Other people didn't buy the inventory. So as the years went by, that was always a hard thing to get my rep to get their person to invest in inventory. Please stay with me because this is going to be relevant. And they were uncomfortable doing it. Now here's the crazy thing. Why would you be uncomfortable getting someone else to do something that you're already doing? So if you're already doing it because you know it's the right thing to do, then why wouldn't you tell the other person to do it? If I'm your trainer in the gym and you come to me and you want to, oh, that's a bad example because I don't look like a trainer in the gym, but if you go up to a person, that's how I picked my trainer years ago. I walked around a gym, I found someone who had, was in great shape, not someone who, like, if they tried to scratch their head, their bicep would poke their eye out. I didn't want to get that big, but I just wanted to have a strong, lean body. So I found a guy and then I said, hey, just tell me everything you do. Tell me how you lift. What kind, do you use free weights? What do you do? Just tell me what you do. I'll duplicate what you do. Tell me what to eat, so on and so forth. So if you, as a trainer, should a gym trainer go, well, I don't eat dairy, but, I don't want to tell anyone because, listen, if not eating dairy is important to having abs, that you can see, which it is, then you need to tell people because you can do, my trainer was like, dude, you got some badass abs now. I mean, no one will ever see them, but I mean, it's amazing because I wouldn't cut dairy out of my diet. The point is, if you know the answer, why would you not tell someone? How many of you want the people on your team to succeed for real? How many really want them to succeed? Okay, great. Then why would you not tell them? Because it's uncomfortable? Because here's the thing. Well, I don't want to push my people. Okay, so here's the thing. The people you don't push, 99% of the people you don't push are going to quit. Could you imagine what our military would be like if in boot camps they didn't want to push people? Could you even imagine? I've never been to military boot camp. I know a lot of people have. I know several people have been through SEAL camp, as I mentioned the other night. But I've seen enough movies, and I know that they push people. Now, they're preparing you for battle, right? Like literally to defend your life. So they've got to push people. If they don't push people, they're not doing their job. Well, I know we're not going to war that's life and death, but how many of you could see where if you want to get wealthy, that's kind of a battle as well. And you're going to have a lot of obstacles. How many have found enemies here and there? Competitors, dream stealers, whatever. So you need to be prepared. And if you're afraid to tell your people what they really need to hear, you're not helping anyone. So finally, I found a very analytical guy in the organization. He was another leader on another team. I didn't make money off him, but I've always believed that each team should work together and collaborate and all that kind of good stuff. So he and I became friends. I did some meetings for him. He did some stuff for me. And he had all this, Andy, you would have loved this guy. He had reports and data like beyond anyone I've ever met except you. And he did all this data, and he showed that when someone started, remember I'm talking to you about the people on my team, it would be hard to get them to feel comfortable selling a new person inventory right away. He did a report that showed the people that start with no inventory, 0.02% of them ever have any financial success. And when I'm talking about financial success, I'm not talking wealth, I'm talking, making $2,000 or $3,000 a month, which in network marketing is considered success. So 0.02% of the people who get no inventory. That's a very, very, very low number. The people who buy a small to moderate amount of inventory, and this was based on his downline over a 5-year period, small to a moderate amount to start, it was something like 3% of them had success, and the people that got the largest amount of inventory it was possible, 35% of those people became successful. So now I've got a guy on my team named Kale. Kale, when he said, come to my city and I'll put 50 people in a room for you. How many have heard that one before? How many have heard that one before, and when you got to that night, there were a few less than 50 people in a room? Oh gosh, I remember the dude in Allentown, Pennsylvania. This was the worst one ever. He rented a ballroom for 400 people, and he said, oh, dude, I'm going to have 400 people in a room. I'm like, get a smaller room. It's okay. No, I'm going to have 400 people. Showed up, drove all the way out there, about a 3-hour ride, and he had, including himself, 3 people. It just happens, right? So Kale says, I'll put 50 people. He was in Manhattan, Kansas, the Little Apple, where K-State is located. So I drove all the way out there. He didn't have 50 people. He had 75 personally invited people. I'm like, oh my God, like that is what we call a sign. Okay, by their fruit you should know them, really good fruit. Most people cannot invite anywhere near that many. So I'm going, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing. But his personality was, he didn't like pushing people. He wanted to help everyone. You guys understand the animals, right? So he told me, don't tell any of my people they should get inventory, no matter what you do. And I'm like, that's like telling a doctor when they find something in the body that needs to be taken out. Whatever you do, don't take out the bad stuff that's hurting my... I'm like, but that's what we do. So anyway, we got through that evening, and I worked with him a little bit, but again, when you're looking who you work with, to me, the number one thing, are they teachable or unteachable? So this guy, talk about frustrating. He invited 75 people, and they all showed up, but he wouldn't listen at all. And he had his own way of doing it. Now, I just told you, I'm not focused on methods as much as I am results, but guess what his results were? They were horrible because he wasn't having anything doing the things that you need to be done. So I thought about it. Then this other guy gave me that data. So I went back to Kale and I said, hey, let me share something with you. Here's hard, cold, empirical data. And I remember the people who get nothing, which was Kale's whole team, 0.2% of them have any success. And then I showed him the people that get a significant amount of inventory, 35% or whatever it was, have success. So I basically said to him, so when you bring people in and you don't push them, you're essentially signing their death warrant. From the minute they get started, you're killing their career. I mean, now, and again, this guy was a youth pastor. He loved people. He cared. So the reason he wasn't doing it, we had this, that opened up the lock, and he started really talking to me and telling me what was really going on. And he just didn't want to push people. He wanted to help people, but he didn't want to push people. But again, a lot of times the only way to help people is to push them. When your car is stuck in the mud, how are you going to do if you don't feel comfortable pushing the car? Some things, when they're stuck, how many of you have been stuck financially? How many of you have friends who are stuck financially? You know what they need to be? They need to be pushed. So, well, unstuck, but how are they going to unstuck? I know, why don't we manifest being unstuck? Hold on. Oh, I want to be unstuck. Let me get a vision board of being unstuck. And vision boards are cool, manifesting is cool. You know what's cooler? Getting off your ass and going to work. So pushing. So push the car, man. So again, Kale got it, the penny dropped, and he went out and started telling people, but he did it now from a whole different perspective. He goes, look, I saw all the data, and you really need to get some inventory to get started, because if you don't, your odds succeeding are almost non-existent, and I really want you to succeed. So even though it might be uncomfortable, I need you to do this. He became the #1 producer in my team, the #8 producer in the entire nation as soon as he got that. So I'm telling you that story to get you to understand, if you're not pushing your people to get leads, I am not a genius. I'm not Forrest Gump, but I'm not a genius. I have figured this out in the last 15 months. The more leads you buy, the more insurance you sell. Anyone disagree with that? If Andy has said that to me once, he said it to me 6,985 times. I just don't understand why people don't get more leads. So again, if you have a reason why you're not doing that, I'm strong. If you're being Kale right now, and you've got a really good logical reason because of your life experiences and your beliefs, that's what led Kale to think it was bad to get people to buy inventory. So if you think it's bad to get people to get leads, why don't you try what we're trying to share with you? All the top people are doing it. It's not like it's a couple of them, it's all of them. And here's the other thing. If you take a rope, a thick rope, and you try to push a rope, what happens to a rope when you push it? Does it move forward? Does it? No, it bunches up. So what we need to do when it comes to this is try pulling a rope. If you pull a rope, will it come the direction you're trying to get it? So pull people by you being the person who's leading by example. Make sure people know that you're getting your leads, that you're using your leads. We're always talking to our people. So when you have your windshield time, when you're spending time with people, make sure you're constantly letting them know about the importance of the leads. So here's the other thing. And again, we're running out of time, and we are very big on finishing on time. So I just want to go through this part with you, because as I've been doing a lot of one-on-one coaching with people in the room, I find that this is one of the things that they're a little confused on or not clear on. You heard 2 or 3 times this weekend, scheduling is everything, right? We all buy into scheduling is important. So there's a difference between scheduling what you're doing every day to sell insurance, or scheduling in your local market, and or building a nationwide business. I think we all understand there's a difference there. So the way I was taught to do this many, many years ago was, again, let me go back to that phrase, phase one. Phase one, so when I was working in Philadelphia, when I was in Northeast Philadelphia, I was in Philadelphia for 23 days every single month, consecutively. And I would go. I'd get up early, I'd stay late, and I would invite as many people as humanly possible, do as many presentations as possible. And as soon as someone signed up, I'd run their warm market. I'd have windshield time with them. I'd drive depth. So I worked my local market. That's creating momentum. That's the first stage of building, is creating momentum. The second stage is advancing momentum. Now, here's the thing. I don't know anyone I've ever met in my life, including my mentor, who I would say is probably the best network marketer in the history of the galaxy, for real. Like, this guy was, I won't get into it. I'm just telling you, he shattered records. He didn't break records. So if he was a basketball player, he would average 193 points a game. He demolished every record of the companies he was in once he figured out what he was doing. So when I started work with him and he told me what to do, I obviously was going to do exactly what he told me to do. So I would stay there and I would build it. But him, no matter who it is, it's almost impossible to advance your own momentum. Please hear what I just said. Creating momentum and advancing it are totally different, and it's almost impossible to advance your own momentum. In the Bible, it says, a prophet is not welcome in their own hometown. Okay, if Jesus stood up after 30 years in Nazareth and started doing things and declaring he was the Son of God, and the people, if he couldn't convince people of that he knew, how are we going to convince people? Does that make sense? I'm being real with you. It's like, now, in the Bible, who was the first person to tell everyone about Jesus? John the Baptist. John the Baptist was the one. Was John the Baptist doing a phenomenal job of edifying Jesus? Okay, so again, I'm just using that as a parallel. What we've got to do is, I stayed in my city and I went crazy, but I was not a big shot in the city I was working in at all. The big shot is the one who advances the momentum. The big shot is the one who edifies. When I'm in my market, I'm not a big shot. I'm just trying to roll up my shirt sleeves and bring Brandon in, and buddy, I'm here to help you, and we're going to do this deal. I'm not acting cocky or aloof, or even if I am, if you are making a fortune. I remember I cold recruited a young lady in Birmingham, Alabama. Met her in the mall. All I did was talk about her. You're dynamic, you're this, you're that. I'd love you to come down. She came down to the office, and they said that I had better, and she was like, and they were like, Mark, bro, Mark, do you know that Mark is the #3 producer in the company? Do you know this? Do you know that? How much better does it make you look when you don't act like you're a big deal? You're just, shucks golly gee, I'm just here to help you out. So dig in, work and develop those relationships, because when you are working with a team, you need them to like you and trust you. Someone said that earlier this weekend. You want people, it was Marcus, you want people to buy from you, they got to like you and trust you. Well, even more so, you want people to work with you, you want people to do what you tell them to do, they've got to like you and trust you. So stay in that phase one, I'm your best friend, we're going to build this thing together. On the 24th day of the month, I got out of Philadelphia, and I went to whatever markets I had outside of that market. So whatever they might be. So in other words, Jake got on a plane, left Varay at home when he went to Hawaii. Can't believe he did that. But when Jake went to Hawaii, I'm kidding. Jake became the expert. He was doing phase one in Albuquerque, to follow the analogy. But when he got out to Hawaii, he is the Big Kahuna. He is the big deal, and he should be, because only the Big Kahuna can advance momentum. The regular Kahuna cannot, write that down, the regular Kahuna, kidding, cannot advance momentum. Only the Big Kahuna, that's a Hawaiian term for real, can advance the momentum. Only Hefe can advance the momentum. So I would go, in the beginning, I only had one market outside of Philadelphia. So for the last 7 days of the month, I would do Windshield Time, and I would take the people like a Mike Guerra who is up and coming, and I would pour into them. And like he said, I'd sleep on their couch, get up, have breakfast with them. If we had time to run the gym, I did everything I could. And every moment, I was purposeful. Okay, meaning that if I wanted to get Mike to learn how to sell more leads, somewhere during the course of my day, I'd figure out a way to tell him a story about someone in another part of the country who started selling more leads to the team, and bam, things exploded. But I'm also focusing on getting Mike to know that I care about him. Now, the mere fact that you got on a plane and showed up shows that you care, but it's got to be more than that. You got to get to know them, find out what how many have ever had a situation where the spouse was not wildly supportive of the person doing the business? Okay, and a lot of times people are like, well, I don't want to look at that. I don't want to deal with that. That's too much hassle. Listen, if that's the case, you better stick your head into the mouth of the lion as quickly as you possibly can. Because if you can get it at point easy, if you can get it early on, and you ain't going to be able to do that over the phone or over a Zoom. God bless Zoom. I get to communicate with a lot of you guys on Zoom, but forget one-on-one, face-to-face is the way you build real relationships. So you want to have incredible downline, you have got to get on a plane. You should have a ludicrous amount of frequent flyer miles if you're doing this the right way. You should be like Gina Hawkes. That's how many miles you should have if you're doing this the right way. So I would spend 7 days. Then before I knew it, I wasn't in Philadelphia anymore, so Philly became one of the places I would go back to at the end of the month. I was in another city doing phase one. Actually, I went from Philly to Tampa. I went from Tampa to Dallas. I went from Dallas to San Francisco. I was young. I was single, and I'm like, I'm going to go work in every city I always wanted to see and or live in. So again, everyone's life situation is different. The point is, even if you're in the exact same place, okay, here's the deal. There's a guy named David Peach, incredible guy, very successful. He had a chiropractic business, one of the biggest chiropractic businesses in the country, got involved in the network marketing company I was in, shattered all the records in the company at the point. In 8 months, he went to the highest rank of the company. He's doing great. And he was, I mean, this guy was feeling it. Like, he had just, the company was glorifying him. So he and I went to dinner. He goes, Acetta, you think I can make $1 million a year working just out of Minneapolis? And I was like, I just burst out laughing, because I don't know anyone who makes $1 million working out of just one market. I don't care if it's New York. I don't care how big it is. When you get here's the thing. If you're in one market only and that market takes a hit in momentum, how many of you have ever seen a sports team get on a slump? Does that happen? Whole team in one area and there's a slump. How does everyone know there's a slump? Because whenever you normally but if that market, call it Tampa, has 200 people and it's down to 23, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Have your business all over the country. So again, start thinking like this. Don't be the person who has one hamburger stand. Every city in every part of the country. So you got to be intentional about it. How many of you know someone who lives in a place? If you have to recruit them over Zoom, then recruit them over Zoom. If you happen to have an area where you know a bunch of people, then invest in your business. Get on a plane, fly out there, and let's take a hope that you get a couple of them going. My point is, when you get someone going, you've got to go back on a frequent basis. Frequent basis for me was once a month. So 23 days phase one, 7 days phase two. So it's a simple formula. If you want to alter that slightly, have at it. But the idea is, the ultimate is when I got to where I was in whatever market for 23 days, and then it was 7 days in a row. Boom, 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 boom. And I would go there, I would do a big meeting, they'd invite all their prospects, we'd do a meeting followed by a getting starting training. But the meetings before and after the meetings, the guy who picked me up, the hotshot, who was on his way up, whose eyes were as big as silver dollars, who picked me up at the airport. Don't miss those opportunities, man. You got a big shot coming into your area, run a contest. Whoever writes the most apps this week gets to pick up Andy at the airport. There's just so many ways that you can get your people engaged. And again, being on the road, being face-to-face and having a chance to do it is what it's all about. So I've run out of time for this segment. I'm just going to leave you with this thought. The View, right? We have a bunch of people sign up for The View. Again, number one, please stay until late Sunday night. Leave on Monday morning. For real, for real. Trust me on this one thing. That's number one. Number two, I am like I cannot begin to tell you how excited I am to do that full event for this organization. I have really definitely fallen in love with a bunch of people here over the last 15 months, and I know that that event is going to, wow, it's going to pop a lot of people. It's going to unstick a lot of people. It's going to put all the tumblers on the combination for people, because it's a lot of personal development, it's a lot of in your face, it's a lot of emotional stuff. And again, Dale Carnegie said it, when you're dealing with humans, you're not dealing with creatures of logic, you're dealing with creatures of emotion. Yesterday, Mark has said it, people make emotional decisions, they back it up with logic. That's not just with selling. You want someone to make a decision to go all in? then you need to get them to a big event, and especially this big event. Now, the price is $3.99 after today, right? Again, no one outside of here knows the price went up. So you can't in your head go, oh, the tickets were $2.99 and now they're $3.99. They're going to be harder to sell. That's an internal thing with you. You should just please focus on the tickets are $600 and you get to sell them for $200 less. That's all anyone needs to know. So normally it's $600. You can still get a ticket for only $3.99. Okay? So we were ready to go. I bumped into 3 or 4 people in the lobby. Andy came to me again and was getting the same stuff about people going, man, could we just have like a couple of days at that lower price? Just a little bit of time at $2.99. So we're going to extend that price until Friday at midnight. Friday at midnight. So that gives a lot of opportunity to get out of here. But guys, it's got to become a priority. You heard a lot this weekend. So again, we heard a lot about what pays us right now, doesn't pay us right now, may pay us a lot down the road. Please put a lot of energy into one-on-one calls so you can overcome people's objections and reasons. Get as many people signed up for this as you possibly can by Friday. And then when the price does go up to $3.99, because I swear on my children, all children, the price is going up to $3.99 Friday at midnight. There is no way it's not going up. So we have this one extra chance to push that price. But when the price goes up, if there's still tickets available, you need to still sell it like it's crazy. Last thought. A lot of information this weekend, right? How many think we got a lot of good, actionable information? A lot of how-to information. There was some good motivational stuff along the way, but for me, that stuff just doesn't matter nearly as much as the actual information on how to sell a policy, on how to recruit, on how to build, all the things we talked about. So again, just leave you with this one. Some of you may have heard this, but I'll ask you a simple question. There's 3 cats on a fence, 2 decide to jump off. How many cats are on the fence? Okay, you guys have definitely heard that before. With less wildly educated audiences, most people will definitely say the number of deciding to jump off the fence is not jumping off the fence. Deciding that you're all in is not being all in. In the movie The Matrix, Morpheus, the teacher, says there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. You know the path now. Now let's see if you're going to walk the path. So again, guys, thoughts are amazing, but thoughts can only determine what we want. Action, and only action, determines what you ultimately get. Last night was amazing. All the award winners, God bless all you guys, but that's now over. And anyone who wants to be on the stage at this time next year, it's all about action. Last season doesn't matter at all. If you weren't in the top 2,000, it doesn't matter last year. What matters is what you got this weekend and how aggressively you take action on it. So it's been a blessing for me to be here. Thank you so much, and I really look forward to seeing you guys in Colorado. God bless.